It has been said. That in the end of all things, we would find a new beginning. But as the shadow once again crawls across our world, and the stench of terror drifts on a bitter wind, the people pray for strength and guidance. They should pray for the mercy of a swift death. For I have seen what the darkness hides. I don't think it's safe here.
I don't know about you all, but that cinematic still gives me chills. I know that's actually the announcement cinematic that is a little bit older than 7 years old, but I do want to go through and at least start the episode off with, today is the 7th anniversary since the launch of Diablo 3, and, it just going back and looking at some of that old stuff and remembering how I was feeling leading up to the launch of D3, it still just has, like, that certain, rose-tinted glasses, that nostalgic feel to it. I loved the actual official Diablo account went and tweeted out a picture of a barbarian dying to bees in Act 2, and it's like, yes, that is what I remember of, like, the weeks after the launch, just going through and completely obliterating myself, going and playing a monk, just trying to get through Act 2 as best as I could, finally giving it up, and then rolling a wizard so that way I could beat Inferno, finally. And I will always have a little bit of pride that I managed to beat the original D3 on Inferno before they nerfed Inferno, but after they nerfed energy armor for the wizards. So I did it, kind of legitly. There was still, energy armor was still, like, an incredibly powerful tool that allowed you to kind of, like, cut through a lot of the difficulty in the higher end game, but it still was one of those ones that it gave you kind of like one mistake. If you got hit by one of the projectiles or one of the dot damage, but if you got swiped by Diablo or any of the bosses really directly, you still didn't have enough HP to survive. It would still go through and one shot you. Because before the energy armor thing was that you could never take more than like 30% of your health as damage from any attack. But then they nerfed it to where if the attack would outrightly kill you, it would still kill you. Before it was like, I'm just going to take as little vitality as I can on my gear, like 0 health, and will always take 3 shots to hit me, and if I have any type of regen, it's just going to continue to go through and fill me up. Whereas with the energy armor nerf, if the attack, say you only have 5,000 health, if the attack did 5,000 damage, you'd be dead. It would just one-shot you straight through the energy armor. So you still had to get some vitality there, but it'd give you some wiggle room. But just the amount of damage that enemies did, and I guess your level of survivability that you had back then was, pretty disproportionate. And everything would kind of just, chunk you for the majority of your health. But at least with the energy armor, you could survive a couple hits, except for the bosses. They would just one-shot you. Yeah, so definitely one of those things. Diablo, cheers for the 7 years of good times, fond memories, and sometimes very uh, frantic, annoying errors, bugs, and other things of that nature. But it's one of those things that just I can't help but go back and look at, leading up to the Diablo 3 launch, when I was just kind of like I was a special guest on the Diablo Inc. Gamers podcast with Flux and Leviathan every once in a while. It just playing the demo at BlizzCon, because there was the 5 years or 4 years from announcement to launch, that you got to play at least a couple of the demos, try out, PvP was a thing, and all these expectations, for the game, without really having seen what the end game would be like, not really having any expectations besides, oh, I wonder what they're gonna do based on Diablo 2, with little hints and tidbits, oh, Torment, we doubled it, and now we're in kind of that strange point where, we're at the end of Diablo 3's kind of life cycle. There's still going to be, continual updates and content going through coming. One of the nice things that we kind of saw with this patch, with the addition of the stash tabs, is that at least that there's going to be support, and they're working on some server performance issues and such over at least the next couple of seasons and or patches. That there's still some things coming, for the game. But we're not quite yet at the part where we have the next iteration in the series. This is kind of like if you were really big into Diablo 2, 2006, 2007. There's a lot of rumblings that they were working on something. Blizzard North had been hard at work and then closed, and some of the people had continued on, like Matt Uelman and such went on to Blizzard to help with some other projects. We know that at that time, like, Matt Uelman had gone over to Europe and had recorded with the Prague Symphony Orchestra for some things that later ended up being used for Burning Crusade. There was also now I'm sad, rip Diablo fans, but what used to be Diablo fans used to be Diablo3.com, but then they reached an agreement with Blizzard. What was that? I think it was 2006, 2007-ish, that they reached that agreement and handed over the domain to Blizzard itself. And it was like a couple of like really big tells that we knew Diablo 3 was coming at that point in time. And here we are now, 11 years since then, 7 years since the launch of Diablo 3, and we're in a similar circumstance. Literally, to where we could be, that same point in time from, the launch of D2 to the announcement of D3. We're not that far away from, the launch of D3 to the announcement of D4. It's just an interesting time to look back on, like think about like what you were doing, what you were hoping for back then to now. And like, what are your expectations going forward in the series? Are you still super excited, about what could come next? Are you kind of sit back and gonna wait, or are you taking a more casual approach? You just don't have as much time to devote to games as you once used to, whether it be a kid or a career or any number of things. Maybe you've fallen in love with a different game, a different genre. You're playing League or Path of Exile or something along those lines. But who knows? Who knows? This BlizzCon could be really big, for the Diablo community itself. And before I go through and start jumping into some stuff about Season 17, I do want to mention just a couple quick things, about BlizzCon. That we had confirmation from a couple of streamers and such that they've gotten media passes. Most notably, Quinn is going through and saying that he got a media pass for BlizzCon, specifically from the Diablo team. I don't know if that's been like confirmed by anyone or anything like that, but that's a pretty good tell that if you're going to go through and reach out to a bunch of streamers and such, that, well, something's getting announced. Doesn't necessarily have to be Diablo 4, as we've always heard, multiple teams, multiple projects. But that's a pretty good indication that something is coming. You know, and we all hope that it's something big, of course. And then one thing that I do want to go through and hit early and super quick, really fast, is that right now, we finally did it. I was wrong on the last episode where I was saying that maybe May could be the first Diablo, but I expected that it was going to be something along the lines of, like, you know, Queen of Zara or World of Warcraft 8.2 with those raids and such. Well, I am glad that my prediction is wrong, and that we do actually have the very first, you know, Blizzard Gallery limited edition print, and it is just an insanely beautiful piece of artwork. This is Brahms Butcher, which is one of the concept art pieces for Diablo 3. It's limited to only 300 copies. It's $55 plus shipping. If you are a rabid fanboy and collector of all things Diablo like myself, you might want to stop over at the gear store and go through and pick one up. Which yesterday was an expensive day for me, because not only was it that, but they did that World of Warcraft 15th anniversary collector's edition, which, like, doesn't actually include a game. It's just, you know, $100 for some accessories and such. You know, like a little, I mean, it's like a little, it's there's a WoW 15th anniversary icon. I think I'm not sure if they were mounts or like a little limited print of, like, the griffin and the eagle mount. But the big thing, of course, was just that Ragnaros. It's like an 11-inch Ragnaros statue. That's beautiful. And if you're a fan of classic WoW, how could you say no? I believe it is sold out on the gear store. I think you can still pre-order it, like Newegg and Amazon and such, at least for the time being, if you wanted to go through and get one of those. But we'll forget about that stuff. Who cares? Well, we're going to go through and we're going to start talking about a little bit about Season 17 now, which, if you haven't decided on your class yet, now would probably be the best time to do it. You only have a couple days before the season, but the great thing is that with just going on top of all the balance changes that they did last season, a couple of the little tweaks that they did for this season, this patch has made pretty much every class have like a kind of a top tier viable build, and everything is kind of within that 5 or 8 greater rifts of one another. Everyone's going to get, like, basically like into the 120s as far as a solo greater rift clearing build goes. And the other interesting thing to me is that with this season, it actually added quite a bit more variety than what it did with Season 16. Because so many classes get huge power boosts out of their rings that, with the Legacy of Nightmare just being a default buff and giving you those 2 extra ring slots, has opened up a ton of utility for a bunch of classes. Most notably, such as like the Legacy of Nightmare Lawn Mages and like the Lawn Thorns for Necromancers. Now that they can actually equip, you know, like particularly for the Singularity Lawn Mage, that you can equip the Julian Love Ring, the Crisbins, and like a Curse of Elements all at the same time, instead of having the Legacy of Nightmares in one of those 3 in the cube. You can equip all of them, which is a huge power boost. It actually makes that a lot better than, you know, the Wrathma mages. You know, everything has something that's going to be clearing, kind of like the top tier ranks. I believe earlier today Riker just went and put out his tier listing video, and you know, I'm not gonna steal anything from him, so you want to go through and check that out. But pretty much, I believe like almost every single class besides the Demon Hunter is actually represented in the top 10, the top 10 builds for this particular season. And the Demon Hunter the N6 M4 isn't that far behind those top builds, so that it's definitely worth checking out. The long and the short of it, though, to go through and kind of collect some of the feedback that I took from that video, as well as just from some like tips that you can use for leveling. If you're not sure what you want to pick up for this season, or if you just want to pick up a nice, easy class that you can go knock through all of your seasonal achievements and then go back to non-season, you just want to get your stash space, you just want to get those galactic wings and be done, Demon Hunter is probably your best bet. Your Hadrig's Gift is the Shadows Impale, which is also one of the top performing builds for the Demon Hunter. It's one of the easiest builds to gear for in the game, because when you upgrade daggers, you only have 2 choices. So you have a very small pool in order to fish from to get really good gear upgrades. You're already set with Hadrig's Gift for making sure that you have the full Shadows set. And then Demon Hunter is just one of the easiest classes to level with because of some of the changes that they've made to the challenge rifts and such. You now get 35 Death's Breath when you complete the challenge rift, which allows you to level all of your crafters up to max level. It allows you to craft a level 70 rare item, class item, or non-class item, preferably a weapon, convert that into a legendary, and then cube it. And so like for the Demon Hunter, if you cube a dagger, you have no bad choices. You're either going to get a super damage buff for Impale, or you're going to get the buff on Fan of Knives. Either one is going to have you clearing through the game super quick, and you're just going to be power leveling through everything. You easily, and when you just get one of those item effects, I remember a couple seasons ago leveling a Necromancer, I just happened to find a Shadow Hook while leveling, and I was able to clear through most of the game on like Torment 4 or Torment 6 for a little bit, just because I had that weapon in the cube. And so now that all classes have access to that, there's definitely some winners and some losers when it comes to that. Necromancer, Barbarian, and Demon Hunter are kind of the best because you can focus in on those weapon upgrades to make sure that you're getting a good item that's going to give you a power buff. Some other ones might have a little bit of a rougher start, like a monk or a wizard, where there's so much variety from the different power level and the items that you can go through and get that won't necessarily help you while leveling. I think like the monk's best is like going through and like doing I think this the staff weapons, just because you have, I think it was like almost a 50-50, like 5 out of 12 potential chances of getting a good decent weapon, as opposed to like the fist weapons, which I think were only like 3 out of 11 of potentially getting a item that is going to give you a good enough damage buff that will help you level. Almost anything that you get at least will add a little bit of something, but not to the level of, say, like a Demon Hunter, getting the Fan of Knives or Impale, or a Necromancer, again, has, no bad options if you craft a two-handed staff. The Necromancer, especially with the buff to Legacy of Nightmares in that long Singularity Mage, is kind of going to be is going to replace Rathmas for the rat runs. Necromancer has a great place everywhere in the meta. It has really good solo clearing capabilities. It's actually potentially like the best solo clear with the Lawn Summoner Thorns. But just with the Singularity being in the rat runs, Z Necro, kind of being one of those default options, it's not a bad class to go through and pick either. If you want to just go through and knock stuff out. But again, if you want to just solo through, get it done as fast as possible, you're not caring about grinding out the season, you just want the stash tab, go Demon Hunter. It's going to be your fastest route for leveling, and it's going to be your fastest one to gear in order to get all of your seasonal achievements done. Incredibly easy challenge rifts, or not challenge rifts, set dungeons. Sorry, forgot the word there. In order to go and do, there's just a lot of utility in Shadows Impale. That would be my suggestion. But it, basically the same kind of formula will work for any class that you decide to play, which will, of course, at this point, hopefully you haven't done the challenge rift yet and you want to wait until Friday in order to do it. And then also, once Friday hits, you want to make sure that the season has gone live and you have created your seasonal character before you jump in and do the challenge rift. I know some people still mess that up, but make sure that you're on your seasonal character. Hopefully you have a group, so it's going to be a lot easier to clear with 4 players than just 1. That way you're guaranteed to do it. You're not wasting any tries, and you're just getting in that leveling as fast as possible. Get your 1 to 4 player group, go complete the challenge rift, hop into your game. You can go open up the challenge rift, get all the nice goodies inside there. Some classes you can go ahead and start spending those blood shards now in order to gamble. Really good gamble, like if you're playing a Crusader, a level 1 Heart of Thorns is a great item that you can use to help level through 1 to 70, just having that in a cube. You do want to go and usually you take the weapon from take the weapon from one of the followers, go and do an easy boss bounty, just so that way you can get a good smattering of yellows and such. Go to Act 3, grab the cube, craft that level 70 weapon. There are a couple of guides out there for each individual class as to what you want to craft specifically to try and get your best bet. Daggers for demon hunters, as just an example. You're then going to upgrade that item in the cube into a legendary. You're then going to take that item and you're going to then cube it, so that way it takes the power and you can equip it. You have that from the get-go. From there, if you're playing on softcore, go ahead. Depending upon how good of an item that you get, put that difficulty up as much as you possibly can. If you get the Fan of Knives, Shadow Hook, Blood-Tide Blade, something along those lines, you're probably going to just be starting off, on Torment 6, and going from there. It's usually best for the early levels to start in like the Halls of Agony, to just go clear those nice densely populated areas. Then somewhere around level 20ish, you can then transition into going through and doing normal rifts. If you have a group, you might also be able to just start going into normal rifts, since you're not going to be able to get the massacre bonuses easily. Just always make sure that you're going through and double checking the blacksmith. Make sure that in between your rifts, you're always crafting the highest possible weapon that you can, and then you've also saved your blood shards to gamble at for a specific item. So like again, sorry, I'm biased, Necromancer, Grasp of the Essence, for the corpse explosion, which is a really useful skill while you're leveling. You can begin to gamble at level 16. So that's one of those. You can check the Diablo 3 planner. Actually has kind of like a cube guide, so that way or gambling guides. That way exactly where you can find the particular items that might be useful for you to then spend all the blood shards that you've got out of your challenge cache. And then you pretty much go on autopilot there until you get to level 40ish. Once you get to level 40, you can then craft another level 70 item, and you're going to keep crafting level 70 items until you get something that has a percentage effect on it. Percent chance to freeze, fear, stun, whatever it is. So that way you can then roll the other secondary attribute to a reduced level requirement to try and get that as low as possible. You can, if you're super lucky, get that down to get minus 30 level reduction, so you can equip it at 40, but you're just going to go for as low as you can for however many materials or money that you have to go. And the reason why you want to look for that percentage chance on the other attribute is because that will cancel out the majority of secondaries that you can roll and give you the highest chance of that targeted level reduction requirement. Sorry about that. There's a couple other like little tricks and such that you can do. There was one guide that I had read that when you open up your challenge cache, do not pick up the gold, do not have a pet equipped. Drop it in, like Act 5 or someplace like that where you're not going to go accidentally back to or port in on. Don't have a pet equipped. Don't pick up the gold. Level up to 34 and then gamble bracers to try and get the wrist guards that give you experience for gold pickup. Because apparently the gold that you can get within that is like in easy like 15-20 levels. That's definitely a huge gamble and a risk. That again, unfortunately, works best on the Necromancer because they don't have any class-specific bracers to muddle that pool. But even for a Necromancer at level 34, it will on average take a little over 1,000 blood shards to do, which is more than what you've got. So take that one with a grain of salt. If you feel, if you're feeling lucky and you want to go for that, I mean, that will probably be one of your fastest boosts in order to get to 70, especially if you're going solo. Give it a try, but you're rolling the dice on that one. Especially if you're not playing a Necromancer, the odds are not in your favor. And then yeah, that's pretty much from there. Go through, start doing your full set of normal riffs all the way up to 70, and you're good to go from there. You pretty much are going to have a really good start, just with how many mats you're going through, and you're getting. You don't even have to run a single bounty, and you can do a couple cubes. You can add a couple things into the cube and such on your levels up. It's going to be even faster now. I think Leviathan was going through and doing some tests, and he had like a solo 1 to 70 in like under 3 hours, like 2.5 hours or something along those lines. It's pretty ridiculous about how fast they're going through and making things. There are a couple of really good guides that are on Reddit right now. There's a Zero to Hero seasonal guide from Rattles that's on there. And then there's also another guide along with video for like gambling and upgrading that was made by Xanthist, that had a really good in-depth set of different gambling strategies as well as upgrade strategies for each and every single one of the classes. That's just these things. If you want to target, I already have this class in mind, well, here's the things that you want to go through and roll. But again, if you don't really have anything in mind and you just want to do the absolute fastest, you will not find anything faster than the Demon Hunter. Not just for like the 1 to 70, but your chapter 1 through Guardian completion of the seasonal journey, whether it be solo or in a group. That's your absolute fastest that you're going there. Other than that, just some of the things that I was able to mess around with a little bit and go through and check out. Oh my god, I finally went through and saw the ancient puzzle ring, the ancient primal puzzle ring inside the cube. That buffed vault is amazing because it's basically just like a goblin rift. They have so many goblins that go through and spawn in there. It is ridiculous. So it definitely is a nice thing. If you find any ancient puzzle rings, you're set. If that's like one of the first ancients that you find, you're good. You're on the roll. You're on a roll there, especially with just the increased Death's Breath drops from Torment 16. It is insane just how fast that you're going to go through, acquire currency, crafting mats, gems, and all those things. It's Yeah. If you've kind of been groaning at the fact that you have to complete all of your seasonal journeys all over again, don't worry. It's nowadays it's really not going to be that big of a time consumption in order to go through and hit a Guardian for those new galactic wings. With all of the buffs that they've done, the speed that you can get to 70, the power from the gear, and as they've not scaled any of the requirements. The hardest thing is probably still just going to be going through and making sure that you get your 3 conquests, and that's going to be it. And there's plenty of communities and groups out there that will go and help you complete those conquests and groups. Like I was saying before the stream, I do plan on streaming for the Season 17 opening, though I will be starting late. It's going to be closer to 9 o'clock. It's going to be around 8:45. But I do want to go and at least stream for a little bit of the seasonal opening. But if you are potentially not going to be playing, or you're looking for a stream to go through and check out or support, Wolfcrier is again going through and doing the leveling with the cause for the opening of Season 17. So from the 17th to the 19th, if you yourself are a streamer and you want to go through and show support, you can join in to have all of the money go through to charity. It's the Save the Children Foundation. It's the one it's been the same for the last couple of level with the causes. And there's great service. Over $44,000 has been raised for charity. It's something they've been doing. And you don't even necessarily have to stream Diablo games. A couple seasons ago, Wolfcrier went through and made it to where you can stream anything and everything under the Level with the Cause banner. So it's a great thing to go through, show support, jump into those streams, help a worthy cause. And it's just a great thing of being able to tie together gaming with charity. Make it so that way maybe we're not all bad, right? But yeah, from there's just a couple other little things that's been going on within the community that I wanted to go and touch on. As I was talking a little bit about earlier in the stream, BlizzCon, we know that there's a couple of big former Diablo streamers that have been invited, but specifically by the Diablo team, as so do they say. That kind of gives an indication that they're announcing something. We're hoping it's Diablo next, Diablo 4, of course. I do hope that some of you manage to go through and grab tickets, so that way I can see you there. Dreadscythe is going to be there, as well as a lot of other of us from the BlizzPro team. We definitely look forward to hoping to go through and catch you there. As we get closer to that date, I'll start putting together something for a Westmarch Workshop meetup. So that way we can kind of, pick a place and a time. Also, once we have a better idea of where everything is situated on the convention floor, maybe outside the convention, to make it easier for everybody. There has been a little bit of controversy with the way that they sold tickets this year. The APX or ASPX, whatever the ticket purchaser was called, I forget now. I didn't put it in my show notes because I'm terrible at podcasting. That this is kind of like the first time that they've used them for BlizzCon, but it's been used for the Blizzard Arena as their ticketing services. So they've had work with them before. They're actually also the premier partner with the Anaheim Convention Center for most of the events that they do over there as well. They're the second biggest ticketing service in the country, next to Ticketmaster, Live Nation. But of course, people always find a way to complain about something because the app asks for a lot of permissions, namely contacts, GPS location, Wi-Fi enabling, and stuff like that. Which I'm not as familiar with Android, but on iPhone you can deny, all of those requests to use the app, and I'm pretty sure that on Android you probably have the ability to allow or deny permissions as well. But it's not really something that is like all big and like we're like Big Brother's going through and watching you. Riker actually did a really good video on this one. I'll recommend that you go and check that out. But it was very similar thoughts to my own, as in it's a ticketing app that has like a built-in authenticator system for your tickets. It doesn't just generate a barcode that you can print and go. It's a constantly changing, QR code that it updates, within the app itself for your ticket until you go through and you scan it. So it's something that helps try and prevent scalping or ticket fraud and such. To where if I want to give someone else a ticket, I have to send them the information. They have to download the app, but then it no longer appears on mine. So I can't just go through and say, hey, I lost this ticket, get it reissued, and then now you have a dud ticket. So it's one of those ones where it's like it makes sense just so that way it can, for your check-in purposes or sending it to friends and such. But a lot of people have even gone to state that Blizzard themselves, not this third-party company, is just trying to sell your data to make as much money as they possibly can and turn BlizzCon into a cash cow. Which, if they really wanted to do that, they could just raise ticket prices. Which you can see that, like the whole supply and demand, BlizzCon tickets still sell out in seconds, not minutes. So they could raise those prices a lot. And if they really wanted to like make money from this convention, which obviously it's still a it's a project of passion, it's a project of love that they do, not necessarily to go through and make money off of, because if they wanted to, there's other avenues. They don't have to sell your data in order to go through and do that. So that's just one of those ones that's like, I feel that the community is at a point where everything that Blizzard does, they want to perceive as evil, and they want to find the fault in it. But this is like one of those instances where like nothing really bad has happened, and it's just blowing things out of proportion. There's other stuff, of course, that Blizzard has done, in the last couple of months that hasn't sit well with the community, and that you are, rightful to be angry about or question their motives with certain things, particularly anything involving finances and profits. But this wouldn't be one of them. On a little bit of a brighter topic, though, there's a little bit of a change in some of the pre-BlizzCon activities that happen. As many of you know, Westmarch Workshop for the last couple of years has appeared on World of Podcasts at Con Before the Storm, that Thursday night before BlizzCon. This year, the Con Before the Storm is merging with the Wowhead Party, so that way they have kind of a shared combined space, and as of right now, they haven't made any mentions as to what shape or form the World of Podcasts panels are going to kind of take place, during this combined, party celebration that's going on. They did say that podcasters are still going to be involved in the panels and things that they do. They just don't have any questions about it right now. It will still, so that's just something to keep an eye on, to go through, look out for. Con Before the Storm itself does actually have a Kickstarter that's going through and running right now, so if you want to go and show some support to them and everything that they do, go, throw some money over at their Kickstarter, so that way they can continue to go and do it. They try to make it bigger and better every year, and it's a lot of really great people that are involved in those projects. Again, for them, it's definitely that is a labor of passion, and not something that they do for the money or the stress for pulling their hair out to the literal last minute to try and get everything in order. And then on an even lighter note, I was having a conversation with Ludiana earlier today, and came up with the idea of a BlizzCon drinking game that we can all play during the opening ceremony. I hope to go through and put some thought into this by the time that we actually go through and get there, so that way everyone can play, whether you're at the convention or sitting at home, and it hopefully doesn't kill us all. But we will definitely try and get that put together. So that way we can at least make the opening fun, whether we get Diablo 4 or not. Because if we don't get Diablo 4, we'll just be too drunk to care. And if we do get Diablo 4, we'll be so drunk that we care a lot. Does that make sense? I hope so. And one last final thing before I go through and hop into some of the community section here. Yesterday, Forbes posted a very interesting article interview with J. Allen Brack, going and talking about kind of Blizzard's legacy as well as kind of like their evolution since Mike Morhaime going through and stepping down. Some of the difficult questions get dodged. Specifically, going through and asking about Mike's legacy and that transitioning into an advisory role and such kind of are dodged a little bit. Some other questions are a little bit. I don't want to take them too much out of context, but there is one that left me with just a couple of questions. So the interviewer, Heather Newman, asked, what was co-founder Mike Morhaime's legacy for you? And J. Allen Brack answered, I've known Mike for a really long time, and I think he helped create a company that's very values-led, is very values-driven. I think that we're a product-led company. I think the choice of having someone take over who's been a developer is reinforcing that, so I think that the fact that Blizzard is development-led culture is clearly important. I really feel that the overall leadership team that we have is very strong. Mike played an advisory role and told me all the things that I was doing wrong, and he's an opinionated person. We've always talked about wanting Blizzard to outlive all of us. We want Blizzard to be bigger than ourselves, and we want our stories and our games and the different kinds of IPs to just continue on. In order for that to happen, other people have to take over at some point for all of us. And now it's one of those ones where it's we're very values-led, values-driven. We're a product-led company. And it's just, that could be taken a couple different ways. As obviously everything at Blizzard is, their whole mantra is we don't release it till it's right. And it is one of those things is they are a company that they make a product in order to go through and sell it, but they try to make sure that there's at least the value in that product that they can get that loyalty from the user base, which has over the last couple of months definitely been strained. Everything from Mike Morhaime stepping down, the perceived kind of more takeover of Activision itself into the day-to-day operations of Blizzard's, the massive layoffs that they went through and had, the kind of out-of-touch announcement of Immortal with no other follow-up past that. But there are some kind of interesting segments within that interview where he goes through and he responds to some of the criticism that they got about Immortal. And how internally they're kind of perceiving it as more of the whole PC versus console, the kind of meme wars that have existed since the dawn of gaming, and that this is just now kind of the next step in that rivalry. Is now it's PC in consoles versus mobile. And that is just something that is kind of a transitionary period in order to move through, and that they've seen it before. They had a lot of pushback when they wanted to put Diablo on console, and so it's not something that they're they were surprised by. Maybe the level of passion, so to say, they were surprised by. And one of the other ones, specifically about Diablo Immortal, that got to me, if I can find it again here, is asking about the partnership that they have. Excuse me one second. The partnership that they have with NetEase in the development of Diablo Immortal. Newman asked, how does the division of labor work? What parts are NetEase covering and what parts are you, Blizzard? With J. Allen Brack responding, it's a strong partnership, and so they're looking to us for gameplay, IP, story, monetization, ideas, thoughts, and art guidance. And so the fact that from what we can at least take at face value from this interview, is that Blizzard themselves are handling the monetization side of Diablo Immortal, and that's not something that's being up to NetEase. That's a good thing. I've said that for many times that, while I trust Blizzard, I trust Wyatt, I trust Matthew, the other developers on that team. The NetEase is the big variable. They're the unknown. But, now that he's going through at least kind of confirming that if Blizzard is the one that is, at the helm as far as the monetization system goes, I feel a little bit better. Not still completely sold, and I'm not going to be until I have it in my hands and, that Cash App is looking at me in the face about, what is it that I'm going to buy in order to support the game or keep the game supported. Is it going to be cosmetics levels, character slots? Am I going to be paying for items or item upgrade mechanics? We'll have to go through and see. And that's one of those ones that I'm gonna go and hand off the question to you all. How does that make you feel, knowing that Blizzard at least is in charge of the monetization system for Diablo Immortal? Does it change your opinion at all? Does it make you feel better? Do you still not care one way or the other, about how it's going to be done? And so, from there, going into the community feedback section, just wanted to go and take a quick moment that if you wanted to actually drop any questions, items, loot, or anything, you can always email it to the show, westmarchworkshop@blizzpro.com. And again, that's westmarchworkshop@blizzpro.com. You can also go through, hit me up on Twitter, hit the show up on Twitter, leave comments over on the YouTube channel for any questions that you want. There's just a couple questions this time. One from Mikey, not Mikey, but Mikey. Quinn apparently invited to BlizzCon. D4 confirmed. That, I hope so. Talked about earlier in the episode. At least means that something big Diablo related is going to be announced. Because even though they did have Immortal, and they were excited about Immortal, and they feel as if it's something big to celebrate within the company itself, they didn't really send out a lot of huge press invites from the Diablo team. Quinn wasn't there or anything like that, so it makes me think that this time they're sending out more. So that this might be it. And then Luke Legacy went through and asked, thanks again for the show. Riker reckons Diablo next announced for the next Diablo next announced for BlizzCon. Diablo next announced for sure at BlizzCon this year. Do you agree? He talked in his last video this last Saturday with his normal weekly updates, where he feels, especially with the announcement of Quinn and some other big personalities getting those press passes to go to BlizzCon this year, that this must be it. And I like his reasoning for it, that following everything with Immortal, the commitment that Blizzard gave back in December, that we will find out more about all of the Diablo projects that they're working on this year, them pulling out of Gamescom, everything is focused at BlizzCon. And if it's not Diablo 4, I really have no idea what they could kind of cap the year with, because the Diablo 2 remaster is not going to be enough at this point in time if they're waiting all the way to BlizzCon to make these types of announcements. It will be well received, but it's not the thing that the community wants. Diablo Netflix series, again, cool. They want a game. If there's some sort of Diablo spin-off, out of the ARPG genre or something like that, I believe that would just kind of be another Immortal reception that we need. We need Diablo 4. They kind of have pressed themselves into a corner where even if it's not at the point in time that they feel ready to show the game off, they have to do something. They really are almost forced, as it were, to just kick Diablo 4 out the door. Hey everybody, we're working on it. Here it is. It's not coming out for 4 more years, but we're working on it. At like a bare minimum. And I was pretty much going to go through and wrap up tonight's episode here. It was a little bit on the short side. I do hope to see some of you for my stream on Friday. And also, I know I always go through and ask for community feedback, community questions, and such. On our next episode, we actually are going to be having some questions with one of the Diablo developers. Matt Cinderquist is going to be on the show. He is the production lead for Diablo 3, as well as Nevelistus. Brandy are going to be going through and joining me here on the show. So if you would like to submit some questions to get answered by a Diablo developer, now would be the time. So Westmarch Workshop at blizzpro.com. Go ahead, get your questions in, don't delay, as we will actually be pre-recording the episode and then premiering it, or at least the interview portion will be pre-recorded. Not quite sure how I'm going to go through and do that, but I think this next episode is going to be a pretty good one. And so I will hope to see you then. Until that time, I hope you all have a lovely Season 17 start. May you go through, may your bounty bags be full, your caches full of loot, and all of your legendaries be primal. And I will catch you guys on, that's going to be May 29th for episode 165.